Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Thompson High School this week, and it's Thompson Hoover week. I don't know that there's really much bigger of a week to look forward to each and every year that we do this show. So it's going to be a lot of fun just breaking down this game, but we've got 11 total games that we're going to talk about throughout this week's show, and the weather's cool. We've got the best week of weather that we've had all season. It's going to continue into Friday night. We've got highs in the mid-60s, lows in the upper 30s and low 40s. And on Friday night, looks like we're going to be down into the 50s and low 60s for game time when we get to all these big games. So this is it. 2 weeks of region play left. The fall weather is here. The playoff hunt and chase is on. So, Andrew, you look at all that, you get all that excitement, and you can feel it in the air. With 2 weeks of region play left, this is a big moment for a lot of our teams.
Absolutely. This is the moment where we finally start to see the playoff picture get a little bit more clear. We had some action happen last week where we saw Oak Mountain, Pelham, and Montevallo become eliminated from playoff contention, but we've still got plenty of teams in the hunt. Calera and Briarwood chasing down a couple of spots. Obviously, the Lions, the lone team on the bye this week. But we've got plenty of games with playoff implications, and I'm sure we'll dive into later in the show. But the big ones are right up at the top. That's Thompson Hoover game, which once again will be for a region title, and a Chelsea Helena game, which really is going to come down to deciding that home field advantage within Class 6A Region 3. Could see another region title decided in Spain Park as well. So really exciting slate all around, and can't wait to see how it all affects what we're going to see out in November.
Yeah, two county battles. You got Spain Park and Calera. You got Chelsea and Helena, both those with big playoff implications. Spain Park a chance to clinch the region championship. Chelsea and Helena likely battling for the 2 seed there in that matchup. Thompson and Hoover battling for the region championship. Briarwood off this week. They win another one last week, 3 in a row now. Their playoff chance is still alive. So a team that had to come back against the John Carroll team we thought they would be able to pull away from. But this Briarwood team looking good at the right time of the season as well. So they jump back into action next week, still have a chance at the playoffs as well. So a lot to talk about on this week's show as we get going, but nothing bigger than our game of the week right here as we talk Thompson Hoover. We're going to jump into that game, talk that one, our game of the week here at Thompson High School. As we set our sights on this big game between Thompson and Hoover, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services. Another big game right here in Shelby County, covering everything across Shelby County from an HVAC needs standpoint. Since 2005, 3D Air Services is called Shelby County home. They're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. They're proud supporters right here of this segment and the Shelby County Football Show, but the Thompson Warriors in general. They believe in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, something that we expect to be alive and well here in the stadium on Friday night. So 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one business and home at a time. As we get this cooler air, make sure you give them a call. Get that HVAC tuned up. Get your heater ready to go for the cold season. 205-664-3501. 205-664-3501. 3dairservices.com. Jay Carr and his certified crew are going to take great care of you for any of your HVAC needs. It doesn't get much bigger than this matchup when you look at the Thompson Warriors and the Hoover Buccaneers. These two teams have really, this region has run through these two teams for the last several years, and we all know the story of Thompson being 0-20 going into that 2017 season against Hoover. Since then, 9-4 against the Bucs, and they've met in the semifinals of the playoffs 6 of the last 7 seasons, and met in the playoffs in general each of the last 7 seasons, and typically the winner of that game, the last 7 seasons, has gone on to represent in the Class 7A state championship. So a good chance again this year as they battle for the region championship in the regular season that we're going to see one of these teams make a deep playoff run. So, Andrew, when you think about that, this may be the first of 2 battles this season, but in general, this is a big one because of what it means for that region title and throughout the postseason when you get into the Class 7A playoffs.
Yeah, stop me if you heard this one before. Thompson and Hoover going at it for the region championship. Yeah. We got a little bit of a break from that last year with Hoover having a little bit of a down year to where it did not decide the region title in the end, and they did not end up meeting in the playoffs either as well. But this one restores a lot of those same stakes that we are familiar with when the Warriors and Bucks face off within the regular season. And then obviously you have the interesting angle as well, where you had a Thompson team that's typically lost this game within the last few regular season meetings as well, before going on to win when it counts the most within the playoffs. So I'll be interested to see how Thompson approaches this one, especially when you consider some of their struggles within bigger games this season. How are they going to approach this one in a big rivalry environment in front of their home crowd with the top spot within Class 7A Region 3 on the line? I think that they'll come out motivated and really want to put this Hoover team away in order to really take this game, make a statement, and prove itself among the top teams within Class 7A. Because in my opinion, you need to win this game in order to boost your state championship hopes. Not only so that you get a top seed within the region, get a little bit of an easier path to that Class 7A state championship down in Birmingham, but it really gets you a big win over one of the top teams in the state, and for a team that so far has yet to really have that quality win. Obviously, I know they've obviously beaten Hewitt-Trussville, but that loss to Clay Chalkville in overtime, that loss to Grayson in overtime, has really kind of offset that and left some doubts as to whether this Warriors team can compete with the Centrals of the world, with the Auburns of the world, with the Carvers of the world. 7A is sneaky loaded this year, and this game will show us a lot about what we want to see of the Warriors down the stretch.
Yeah, you look at both of these teams, and it's really been a common theme for both of them. The defenses playing extremely good football, two of the best defenses in the state in Class 7A this season. It's been the offenses for both that have struggled so far this season. Thompson scoring right about 30 points per game. Hoover just about a shade under that at 28.9 points per game. But both defenses giving up 13.9 for Thompson, 12.8 for Hoover. So both defenses giving up less than 2 touchdowns a game, and they're making game-changing plays, forcing turnovers, and scoring points with their defense, and that's been huge for them so far this season. But the good news for both offensively, against a little bit more of an inferior opponent this past week in their last outings, Thompson gets a 400-plus yard passing performance from Trent Seaburn, 45-20 win over Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. Best offensive showing of the season by far with the balance that they had out there. And Hoover coming off their best offensive showing of the season, a 56-6 thumping of Tuscaloosa County. So, Andrew, my big question for you as you make your prediction and your thoughts for this game, will both offenses be able to build off of what we saw last week, carry that into this game, going up against arguably one of the top defenses, if not the top defense they faced all season?
I think they'll find success, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Like you said, both of these defenses are very good. This Thompson defense, when it needs to, has really stepped up and made the big game-changing plays that have swung a lot of these games in the Warriors' favor. I particularly look at that Hewitt-Trussville game a few weeks ago as that key example of that, as well as the Clay game and the Grayson game, keeping them in both of those, even though they ultimately lost both of those in overtime, which mainly thinks to me that this turnover battle is going to be especially key. I've seen this Hoover defense throughout the year. I've been saying that they're a little bit an underrated group. Obviously, giving up 12.8 points per game, you can't be too underrated when it comes to that. But I really do think that this team knows how to make stops also when possible. So it's really going to come down to who can be able to flip the field and get the most momentum. You look at the Warriors, they'll especially have a home crowd at their back. So getting a big play from Anquan Fagans or some of those other big defensive playmakers, maybe a big sack from Jared Smith or Vinny Pires as well, could really flip this game on its head and help the Warriors get a little bit of a shorter field and help them build off of what we saw last week, which is Trent Seaborn in this past game really start to come into its own and look a lot more like what we saw last year. So that's definitely an encouraging sign for the Warriors as a team that, like we've said all season, they like to peak late. And this team, I think, is starting to peak at the right time. So I think as long as they do that, they win the turnover battle, and the offense continues to build off that confidence, and they've proved that they can do it in a one-score game, because I do think it will be a one-score game. I think that Thompson ends up walking away with that win.
Well, that's the key. You look at their 2 overtime losses this season in tight games. You look at that Clay Chalkville loss as well. It's been a team that has been right on the cusp of winning some big time games because of how well the defense has played. But it's been that offense that wasn't able to carry them to victory in overtime to open the season against Grayson, and that Clay Chalkville loss as well. This is a team that can really make a jump and a leap here this week as far as being a contender for a state championship. And that's if the offense shows that they can go up against one of these top defenses that they're going to face this season. And you look at what they've done so far against the best defenses they face: 14 against Grayson, 13 against Clay, 15 against Hewitt-Trussville. They obviously win that Hewitt-Trussville game but the offense just hasn't capitalized against the best defenses they faced. Meanwhile, Hoover's in that same situation, 17 points against Western Florida, 8 against Hewitt-Trussville, and 10 against Parker, the 3 best defenses that they have faced. And so one of them is going to have to carry what they did last week into this game and build some momentum. And what impressed me about Thompson's offense last week is the balance that we've seen, that we saw. We've seen that from Spain Park throughout the year, and we typically talk about it on each week's show. But you look at how many guys stepped up, both in the run and passing game. Dedrick Kimbrough with 9 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown. Darian Mosley with some big catches. Brooks Byers with some big catches as well. So he's able to, Trent Seaborn's able to spread the field at that point. But not only that, R.J. Evans and Mike Dujon out of the backfield. Both of them big-time performances, not only running the football with north of 80 yards for each of them, but a combined 8 receptions for more than 100 yards as Dujon goes for 55 and Evans goes for 61. So when you do that, you spread the field big time. And when you've got a defense in high school that's having to account for so many different guys like that, that's what makes it challenging. I think Thompson carries that into this week. I also think you get a big game from Anquan Fagans. He looks forward to these type of moments. Jared Smith, others on that defensive line going to get pressure in the backfield, make life tough for that Hoover offense. I really do think Thompson coming into this game is ready to prove a point. They've been building up toward this moment all year. This is when they typically play their best. Now, this game's always close. It's always close. You look last year, Hoover was down. This was still a close game in the regular season, and Hoover almost pulled the upset. So Thompson's going to have to be ready for that. Hoover's going to have bulletin board material. Thompson's going to have bulletin board material, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's what you expect when these two teams meet. It's going to be a gritty, hard-fought game on the football field here behind us, and Thompson's going to have to come out and win it. Hoover's not going to give it to them. So we'll see if the Warriors are able to do that, claim yet another region championship right here in Class 7A Region 3. We both feel good about their chances to be able to pull it out, but it is going to be a hard-fought, close game that they're going to have to be prepared for. As we get set to talk about this Oak Mountain Hewitt-Trussville game, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services once again. We're kind of hitting the cooler weather here this week. That HVAC system needs to tune up. Your heater, as you turn it on for the first time, want to make sure it's working. If it's not, jot down this phone number, 205-664-3501, 205-664-3501. 3D Air Service is going to take great care of you as we turn into the colder months ahead, fall and winter, right on the doorstep. So make sure you get that HVAC system tuned up. Any repairs you need, you're going to want to visit 3D Air Services. Check them out. Check out all their services at 3dairservices.com. Keep that number, 205-664-3501. Jot it down. Save somewhere safe if you need to call them throughout the winter. As we get into those really cold months, you run into an emergency situation, you're going to want to call it. But also as we get back into spring and summer next year, get that air conditioner tuned up as well. Jay Carr and his certified crew right here in Shelby County. They've called Shelby County home since 2005. They're going to take great care of you. They're proud sponsors of the Oak Mountain Eagles, proud sponsors of the Shelby County Football Show. Make this possible, so make sure you give your local support to them as a local business in return. The Oak Mountain Eagles enter this big matchup against Hewitt-Trussville on the road, coming off a 42-14 loss to the Vestavia Hills Rebels, as Oak Mountain was somewhat in that game at the halftime break, but Vestavia Hills comes out, puts it away in the second half, 42-14. Whereas Hewitt-Trussville going to enter this matchup fresh off a 49-7 win over Prattville. And so, Andrew, when you look at that, to me, Oak Mountain's offense is where this has to start. Their offense is going to have to make plays against a very, very good Hewitt-Trussville defense that's been one of the best defenses in this region this year. And they're coming off another game where they just couldn't capitalize and convert and score a ton of points.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at what this Hewitt defense did to Thompson, did to Hoover. Some of the top teams that they faced gotten in really low-scoring defensive battles with them, which is interesting as well because this Hewitt offense is also scoring 34 a game. So you look at that and you say this is exactly where you want this Oak Mountain defense to be improving at, and it has over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, letting those games get away from them in the end, but playing a couple of playoff teams closer than expected. That's what you want going into a game like this. But you need 4 quarters of efforts on both sides. And you need this Oak Mountain team to continually finish drives and get the ball in the end zone, something that they struggled with last week against Vestavia, which means I'm not entirely sure how this Oak Mountain team is going to be able to do it against an even tougher Hewitt defense. So I think that that's really going to be the difference maker that leans it towards Hewitt. I also think that the Huskies have a little bit more to play for. This team's currently in the 3 spot in playoff positioning. Can't finish higher than the 3 spot, but they'll definitely want to keep that and avoid a really tough road trip in that first round as well. With Oak Mountain, you still have a winning record in play with 3 games left still and 2 of them being in region play. So you do still want to maintain the course, but you just wonder how motivated this team will be coming into these last few games with that playoff spot now out of grabs officially. So I lean towards the Huskies in this one, but I do think that Oak Mountain is will put up a little bit of a fight within this one, make it closer than what we've seen within the years past, just because of the progress that this team has made this year under Shane McComb.
When again, it goes back to Will Odell and what he's able to do as an athlete. Zach Fitzgerald, a huge game last week as well, but just not enough conversions to get into the end zone throughout the night, especially against a solid team like Vestavia Hills. And right now, Hewitt-Trussville giving up 10.9 points per game. That's what worries me going into this one. Oak Mountain scored 14 or less in the last 2 straight and 3 of the last 4 games, and the offense is going to have to get into at least the 20s here with how the defense has been playing throughout the season, giving up 32.9 with Hewitt scoring north of that at 35.3 points per game. So it's that Oak Mountain offense against one of the best defenses they're going to face this season that worries me the most. I think that Hewitt defense rules the game in this one. I think that's what gets the Huskies the win as they continue to battle for seeding there in Class 7A Region 3. As Spain Park tries to lock up a region championship, make sure before you head out to that game that you visit another champion, and that's Scooter's Coffee right there off of Highway 280 in Inverness, located next to the Home Depot and Chipotle right there off of Highway 280. They also got that Chelsea location if you're going down that way toward Auburn or coming up 280 towards 459, heading to the Spain Park game, whatever it may be, Alabama-Auburn football games. Make sure you stop by. I stopped by on my way down to Tuscaloosa this past weekend and got a delicious drink, the iced pumpkin chai latte. It was great, absolutely what I wanted. My mom, she got the maple bourbon cream cold brew, and she loved every sip of it. She downed it in about 5 minutes and was bouncing off the walls the rest of the drive down to Tuscaloosa. So she had the energy going. That's what they're going to do for you right there at Scooter's Coffee. They're going to get you going with everything that you need as we get into these colder months. The fall chill is finally in the air, and Scooter's Coffee is the place to take care of you. They've got all of their specialty flavors right now, including that trick-or-treat blender and cake bites with that perfect combination of chocolate candy and Halloween, all blended into one sip or bite there at Scooter's Coffee. You can also check out the caramel green apple smoothies, their fusion drinks, their blenders. They've got all of it, including their delicious maple bourbon latte as well, that pumpkin spice, the pumpkin chai that I mentioned, the popular autumn caramel crunch, and the Caramelicious, plain or with pumpkin. You can test it all out right there at Scooter's Coffee. One of the best things about them, it's not just a typical coffee shop. They've got smoothies, they've got blenders, teas, so much more to get your energy fix there ahead of a big night of high school football, ahead of a big day of shopping, whatever your needs may be. Scooter's Coffee is going to take care of you right there on 280 in Inverness and Chelsea. Quick drive-through service. They're going to have you in and out and on your way to the big game or a day out shopping right there in the Birmingham metro area. Make sure you visit them right there at Scooters. It couldn't have gone any better for the Spain Park Jaguars last Thursday night as they pick up a dominant 31-3 win over Chelsea in a game that clinched them a top 2 seed here in this region, and now they get a chance to clinch the region championship here in a home matchup with the Calera Eagles. And it's a weird game to me. It felt like, Chelsea struggled to move the football. Never really felt like Spain Park was putting it away, that Chelsea was completely out of that football game. But Spain Park was clearly the better team when it came to controlling the pace of that game and exactly what they wanted to do on both sides of the football. So now you enter against a team in Calera that is playing their best football in a few years. They've won back-to-back games for the first time since 2022, and they've won 3 of the last 4 games. So this is a team that's playing good football right now, 3-4 overall. Spain Park 7-0 overall. That Calera offense is playing some good football in particular. And you look at A.J. Johnson, the stats, and there's going to be a lot of incompletions there, but he's taking shots, and that's why there are those incompletions. But he's also putting up big numbers, and he's got some athletes that are young and growing and learning that are putting up big numbers out wide at receiver as well. So when you break all that down, Andrew, it's that Calera offense made enough of a leap, as this team made enough of a leap throughout this season to get to where they are now, playing their best football, to take down a Spain Park team that has been one of the most dominant that we've seen this year.
I think it's going to be one of the biggest offensive tests of the year for the Spain Park defense. I mean, you look at this Calera team, a 3-4 record. You might overlook it just a little bit, but this is probably the best offense of a 3-4 team that you'll see around in Class 6A.
When in particular, throwing the football with what AJ Johnson can do on the move and stuff like that too.
Exactly. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch him and you're going to see him for the first time in the Spain Park game, you're really in for a treat with how he's able to just pinpoint, precise hit those receivers, and really be able to make some big plays with his arm. And they've got a little bit of mobility back there in the backfield as well between him and the running backs as well. So this team will definitely pose a threat. But it's really going to come down to this Spain Park secondary and how it plays. And this Spain Park defense had a massive week last week. Monster game from E.J. Curley. Felt like he was getting a ton of tackles back there as well. You get a big turnover from Fred Grooms. Joe Cross continues to be a secondary threat. And there's just so many other players. You could go up and down the list of the Spain Park defense. They made some big plays and stifled Chelsea in both aspects of the game. So I think they're really going to have to come out and play their best game of the season. But at the end of the day, though, you do look at this Calera defense, and it's still giving up 36.6 points per game. So it provides a really good opportunity for the Spain Park offense to have a little bit of a bounce-back game. I know you said that not much could have gone better for Spain Park. I can definitely tell you they want the deep ball to be a little bit better. Chelsea did a phenomenal job on defense of taking that away from Spain Park, and I know that Brock Bradley and Tim Vakakis, they're really going to want to make sure that they're able to hit those receivers, get that connection going with Corey Barber outside the jet sweep, along with some of those other big receivers that they have as well. It's really going to be a big day for the Spain Park offense, and I think that even if the defense lets a little bit of ground up, lets Calera get some points on the board, I think that's really going to be where it makes a difference. When you see just how much Calera was able to let Chilton County into the door last week before they pulled away at the end, you compare that now to a Spain Park offense that's even better than Chilton County, I'm not really sure how they're going to keep up. So I'm picking the Jags to walk away, clinch that region title, and ultimately that would eliminate the Eagles from playoff contention as well.
Yeah, I mean, Spain Park's balance. We've talked about it already on this show in another segment, and we've talked about it each week of the season. That to me is the key here. This offense is going to go out and have a big night. You're looking at a Calera team that's giving up, like you said, 36.6 points per game. So that defense is susceptible, and the Spain Park offense is not one you want to be susceptible against when you're looking at that defense. So I think Spain Park's offense is going to come out and have a big night, put up big numbers. Dakari Shanks, C.J. Cowley at the running back positions, also catching the ball out of the backfield. Shanks made some big-time plays where he was making great reads and cuts last week running the football. Cowley had a great touchdown grab in that game as well. And then Corey Barber continues to make big plays, and several others in the passing game too. So Brock Bradley's going to have a big night throwing the football. The running back's going to have a big night running the football as well. But to me, the big key in this game, we talked about A.J. Johnson and his arm and what he can do with his mobility. That's Spain Park secondary. I've been working on some different video clips throughout the week, and that Spain Park secondary has made some big-time plays. They were swatting balls down in great contesting of passes from Miller Bowman last week, and that was a Chelsea offense going into that game that felt confident about what they could do throwing the football. They saw some things on tape to where they could try to beat Spain Park throwing the football, and it didn't happen. Spain Park was ready for it. They shut down that passing attack, and they were able to shut down a really good running back, one of the top running backs in the state this year, in Chase Strassner as well. So the defense is going to come prepared and ready for a big battle because they know they can win a region championship. I think that combined with the balance of what we see from Spain Park's offense is going to be the difference. But this Calera team, man, year one under Scott Riles, the improvement they've made throughout the year, 3 of the last 4, 2 in a row. This is a team that has grown tremendously throughout the year. So regardless of outcome, this team's still on the right trajectory there. Spain Park, though, just too good this year. They are the best team in this region and should walk away with that region championship at the end of the night in this battle with Calera. As we jump in to talk about this big Helena showdown with Chelsea on the road, I want to tell you about some proud supporters of the Helena Huskies this year, and that's Consign Design. Consign Design supporting the Huskies throughout the year, supporting the Shelby County Football Show. Great local-owned business right here in Shelby County. Wendy Davis and her crew there at Consign Design going to take great care of you with all of your consignment needs right here in Shelby County, located in Alabaster at 72 Fulton Springs Road near Publix and Walmart Neighborhood Market. Consign Design, they've got 27 years of experience in the consignment industry. Wendy Davis, she knows a thing or two about friendly fashion, whether it's men's, women's, kids, accessories, anything you need, game day gear, stuff like that. They've got all of it right there at Consign Design. Heard from or was scrolling through Facebook this past week and saw a gentleman that had posted about how excited he was. You heard about it on the show. He visited Consigned Design and just asked about all the things that they offer, all the services that they have there at Consigned Design, and found some stuff for his daughter, for his wife. Such an awesome experience there. That's just great. That's what we like to do. That's what we like to hear. Locally owned businesses being supported. It makes a difference in your local communities and helps them thrive. And Wendy Davis does a great job running her shop there at Consigned Design. So make sure you visit them. Check them out online at consigned.design. That's the website, consigned.design, or give them a call, 205-664-7540, 205-664-7540. If you're interested in consignment, or if you're just looking for some accessories, some clothes, baby gear, whatever it may be, they're going to have it right there at Consigned Design. So make sure you give them a visit throughout this high school football season. We've got a massive showdown here between the Chelsea Hornets and Helena Huskies over at Chelsea High School. I'll be the one covering this game on Friday night as Andrew will be out here at Thompson, and I can't wait because of what's at stake. And this one's kind of flown under the radar when you look at it. The last few weeks, everybody's been building up toward that Spain Park Chelsea game. Helena was on a 3-game losing streak, and people start to lose sight of the possibility of what the Huskies can do. Meanwhile, here they sit coming off a dominant showing last week to get to this position. 42-2 thumping of Pelham last week, a 55-14 thumping of Benjamin Russell. The week before that, this Helena team is clicking, and Chelsea comes off that first loss of the season and couldn't get much going on the offensive side in a 31-3 loss to Spain Park. So all of a sudden, here we sit. Helena's got all of that confidence. Chelsea's lost that first game of the season. Does Helena carry that confidence in, get the 2 seed in the region with the win here? Or how does Chelsea respond and bounce back from that first loss of the season? So much here to break down when you look at that as these two teams battle for the 2 seed.
Yeah, I think with Chelsea, you've got to start out with some of the positives of last week, and that's the fact that the defense was really able to get some positive things going. I know it's a 31-3 loss. I know that obviously it looks like a blowout on paper, but like you said earlier, Chelsea was in it for big stretches of that match, and really able to just limit some of what Spain Park was able to do on offense, particularly in the first half before the game started to get away from them, holding Brock Bradley under 100 yards and forcing him to go to the ground and on the jet sweep as well. I think that's a remarkable achievement as well, even if you look at what the offense was able to do, just not really put up that much against a really, really tough Spain Park defense. So obviously, you look at Spain Park, that's a little bit on another level. You look at this Helena team, though, and while it's peaking, I think that you have to like your chances here against this side. But at the end of the day, you are going to have to play one of your best games of the season against this Helena team that's absolutely rolling. I think they really took their lumps early on in the season, had to play some tough tests. But talking to Richie Busby after the game, he's confident that those games gave the team the lessons that they needed to go out and dominate in this backstretch, and dominate they have. Those 2 big results against Benjamin Russell and Pelham, particularly the effectively pitched a shutout against Pelham as well. That safety in the second half, not the defense's fault, as well as a special team's error. And then you look at what this offense is able to do. Really good on the ground between Jeremy Spratling and Nate Ferguson as well. You get Dom Santiago in the mix as well. That's a really big 3-headed monster that they've got in the backfield as well. And those passes continue to make a difference with how Nate Ferguson is able to link up with Torrey Ward, with Nathan Jones, and all those great talents that they have as well. So I think if you're Chelsea, you have to take what you did last week against Spain Park and bring it over into this one. And that's use your secondary, shut down the deep option, and force this team into making some plays on the ground. But then that puts some pressure on this defensive line, on Romello Cooper, on Porter Schott, some of those really big players up front on the defensive line to be able to hold that run game out of it and force them to make plays late in downs. So it's really going to come down to me, to this Chelsea team consistently making plays on both sides of the ball, but I think particularly on the offensive side. You look at this team. Chase Strassner left a little bit early against Spain Park. Not sure his status for the week as well. Could just be a precautionary thing. But you look at this team, they need to be able to consistently make plays, consistently hit those passes, something that Miller Bowman, while he's been strong, hasn't exactly been able to do as much recently, and be able to get those hard yards on the ground, get some of those first downs there as well. And I'm not sure that's going to be enough to compete with a high-powered Helena offense that, while they'll be facing a tough Chelsea defense, I do expect Helena to make enough plays to walk away with this one.
Yeah, Helena, the way that they're playing right now with all this confidence on both sides of the ball gives them a big boost coming into this game, whereas Chelsea is facing some adversity they hadn't faced all season to this point. They've won a couple of tight games, but they hadn't had to face a loss and then bounce back and play arguably their biggest game of the year now after falling to Spain Park last week. Both these teams, though, play a similar style of football, or at least want to play a similar style of football, and that's to be physical on both sides, have a strong rushing attack and approach offensively, and then defensively be just as physical and prepared to stop the run, really. I think that's what it boils down to. And in this game, both these teams are going to want to run the football, and they're going to be prepared to stop the run. And Chelsea's defense, to me, keeps them in this game. They're going to make this a tight football game. This is, on paper, Chelsea and Helena, physical battle. This is the kind of game that's going to be a really tight football game at the end of the night. It could be a game where Helena goes into the half trailing, like they've done so many times, and then bounces back and plays a strong second half. Ultimately, I think that's what happens. That Helena offense the last couple of weeks, the balance they've shown, you talked about some of those guys, and I think that's what gets them over the hump here because they've got the confidence there right now with Chelsea coming off of a tough offensive performance against a really good defensive football team. So I think that Helena confidence going into this game is going to be a big difference maker. But Chelsea on their home field, physical approach, I think they're going to be angry and determined. And this is the kind of game you want when you're looking to bounce back from that first loss of the season because you know how big of a game it is. And I think that could benefit Chelsea more than anything in this football game. But end of the day, I think Helena, with the confidence they carry into this one on both sides of the football, going to have just enough to get over the finish line at the end of the night in this big matchup. So we'll see how that unfolds. 2 Helena picks here, but wouldn't be surprised by this one going either way with how good these football teams are. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see who's able to pull this one out, and really the team that wins it claims the 2 seed here in Class 6A Region 3. So a big, big opportunity for both of these football teams going into this matchup. The big opportunity for the Pelham Panthers to bounce back this week, but we turn first to 3D Air Services, who are proudly supporting the Pelham Panthers and cheering for them in this big game on Friday night against Benjamin Russell. Make sure you jot this number down, 205-664-3501, 205-664-3501. You've heard the name several times throughout the show this year. You've heard it several times throughout just this particular show because they're supporting several of our local teams right here on the Shelby County Football Show, and Pelham is one of those teams. They believe in the power of community. They're your neighbors, they're your friends, supporters right here in Shelby County since 2005. They're local. They support local. They want your support in return, and they do a great job. Jay Carr and his certified team there at 3D Air Services. Make sure you visit them. Check out their services, 3dairservices.com. Learn more about everything they can do as we head into these colder months. Get your HVAC system tuned up. That heater needs to be ready to roll for these colder months. And then, obviously, as we shift back into that hot Alabama summer next year, you want to have that number, 205-664-3501, saved somewhere safe so you can give them a call. That's 3D Air Services right here in Shelby County. The Pelham Panthers look to bounce back from a loss to the Helena Huskies, a 42-2 game. They fall in last week in that rivalry battle. They're back on their home field this week, taking on Benjamin Russell. So Pelham now at 1-6, Ben Russell now at 4-3. And the concern here for Pelham is the opposite direction that the offense has gone. After scoring 33 or more in 3 straight, they've got a combined 9 points the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the defense has given up 42 in those 2 games. So, Andrew, this is a Benjamin Russell team that has been susceptible at times defensively, giving up a lot of points. Offense has struggled a little bit at times as well. So, but they've been a little bit more consistent than what we've seen from Pelham. So when you look at this game, is Pelham going to be able to put it all together this week throughout practice, make the improvements that they've struggled with the last couple of weeks, and turn it into a win here as they host Benjamin Russell.
You don't really know in this one, mainly because the Panthers were eliminated from the postseason as well. They don't really have much to play for down the stretch besides more wins and more pride for this team as it continues to develop. It's a very young team. And I know that Coach Vickery wants to get this team up, wants to get this team to get wins, but what do the players want? And I think that's really going to be key for here. Do they hang it up for the season or do they keep fighting for wins? Especially after a big loss to Helena in your biggest game of the season. I'm curious to see their response here, particularly against a Benjamin Russell defense that's giving up 29.9 points per game. If there was ever an opportunity for this Pelham offense to have a bounce-back game, it's this one. And they'll need it, especially to keep up with a Benjamin Russell offense that's scoring 30 points per game. And it's really been a little bit of a struggle for this Benjamin Russell team to keep up with some of the other offenses that they're facing. But now they get a defense that's giving up 34.6 points per game, so they get a big chance to bounce back as well, especially with the chance to clinch the playoffs as well. If they win, they're in the playoffs, or if Calera loses to Spain Park, they're also in the playoffs. So you mix that in with a little bit more to play for in Benjamin Russell as well. With Pelham's recent struggles, I'm not sure that this is the week where they're able to get one. But I do think that Pelham is going to show some signs down the stretch. I think this one could particularly be close for a while. If the Pelham offense decides to get out of bed and really make some plays on both the run game and the pass game consistently, which is something we've also yet to see as well from this offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it boils down to the attitude that they go into this week of practice with, the approach they take there, and then the approach they go into the game with. And I think it's a young team. And the benefit there is they love this game, and they're going to want to go out each week and get better. They're just, I mean, it's a competitive game in general, but when you're young and you still got years ahead, if it was a senior class, it makes it a little bit more heartbreaking. And for the seniors that are on this team, it is a difficult situation, but it's their last season. They want to play hard. These young kids want to continue to improve and get better and win football games down the stretch and build for the future. And I think that benefits them in this game. I think they're going to come out ready to fight. But like you said, Benjamin Russell fighting for the playoffs. And I think that makes the difference in this one. I do think Pelham, from a consistency standpoint, we need to see some improvements there. But they're going to have a lot of fight in this game. And this is a Benjamin Russell team that is giving up about 30 points per game. Pelham should score some points in this football game. They should have a chance to win this football game. But Benjamin Russell right now scoring right at 30, with Pelham's defense giving up close to 35 points per game. That's too much. Too many struggles there on the defensive side. I think Ben Russell scores too many in this one, as Pelham just has to try to keep pace throughout the night. Ultimately, that's going to be the difference and do them in there in the second half. But like I said, this Pelham team, I think, getting better and better. I've seen some promising signs. We just need to see it from a consistency standpoint moving forward throughout the rest of the season to build off of things going into the 2025 high school football season. So we'll see how the Panthers fare in this one on their home field Friday night against Benjamin Russell. Should be a pretty entertaining football game there for the home team. We'll see if they can pull off the upset and squeak out a win there against Ben Russell. A big bounce-back win for the Shelby County Wildcats last week in a 42-16 thumping of Montevallo in a rivalry battle as they keep their hopes for the 2 seed alive here in this region. A win this week, a Northside loss to Demopolis, would lock up the 2 seed and home field advantage there in the Class 5A playoffs for the Shelby County Wildcats. And they hit the road to take on a Selma team. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, Andrew. I think this could be a sneaky good game this week. I think it could be one of those that we look up. And Shelby County's in a battle with a Selma team that's been pretty consistent so far this season, scoring 21.4, giving up 20.4. This is a team that's right there on the cusp. That defense has been pretty good throughout the season. The offense has been okay throughout the season. But all it takes is one game to find it all on both sides of the football. And if you're the better team in that game on your home field, that could make all the difference. But Shelby County should be the better team going into this.
Absolutely. I think it's going to come down to who has the better defense at the end of the day. You look at the Selma team, yes, it's doing really well on defense, allowing 20.4 points per game, and it's fresh. It's coming off of a bye week and a 26-7 win over Montevallo, where they were able to pull away within the second half and win that pretty comfortably. But you look at this team and what it's done against some of the top teams that it's faced. Those 3 losses are against Demopolis, Northside, and Fairfield. And to me, that really says that while this team is pretty solid, it can't quite crack into that top upper echelon of this region. Yeah. And I think that's where the Shelby County offense really takes an advantage of that. But you also look at what the Selma offense is able to do scoring just 21.4 points per game, and you're going up against a Shelby County defense giving up 18 points per game, coming off of a really, really strong result against Montevallo, where they were able to make defensive plays and keep the Bulldogs down. I know that's a little bit of a lighter offense that they were facing last week in Montevallo, but I think if they carry that over into this one, that momentum and some of those plays that they were able to do against the Bulldogs, I think they're going to find some success here on the road. And I think that the defense is going to be where this Shelby County team really asserts its dominance. And then if the offense has a little bit of a slower day against this Selma defense, I think that the consistency that this defense is going to be at getting stops will really help this team to cruise from there.
Shelby County is a team that is playing so good defensively this year. They've carried that over from last year. That's really been the consistent aspect under head coach Zeb Ellison. They've given up 16 or less in 5 of their 8 games this year. So they've capitalized on offenses that are struggling to score the football, and Selma is struggling to score on a consistent basis at 21.4 points per game. Even against Montevallo, their last outing, 26 points, a team that Shelby County just put up 42 against in a 42-16 win. Selma gets that win 26-7 against the Bulldogs. They go into a bye week, so they got an extra week of preparation coming into this one, an extra week of rest as well. So that's a positive for Selma coming into this game, and they have been right on the cusp. That 26-7 win, the perfect example. The offense playing okay, the defense playing really good, and they just hadn't quite risen to the level, like you said, of that elite of the upper level of this region, whereas Shelby County has shown they can compete against some of the top teams, with Demopolis being the only exception there in that loss a couple of weeks ago. So with the Wildcats defense, I think that is going to be enough to get this one done. That offense better come out and play like the offense that has been so drastically improved from previous years, scoring right about 31.4 points per game. So if the offense comes out and plays like what we've seen throughout the year, I think they can pull away a little bit. If the offense doesn't come ready, if Anthony Palmieri doesn't have a big night, Ryan Sipes doesn't have a big night, then this is going to be a tight game all the way up until that fourth quarter. Benefit there, Shelby County's won some tight games this year in the fourth quarter, difference from the last couple of years. They make those halftime adjustments. They're ready to roll in the second half and in the fourth quarter, and they don't back down from that challenge. I think if it is a tight defensive battle, that makes the difference and gets the offense over the hump at the end of the night. So a great opportunity for the Shelby County Wildcats. If they win this one, I think they do get that 2 seed, as I expect Demopolis to pick up a win in the other game that they would need some help in. So big opportunity for the Shelby County Wildcats against Selma. Well, it's a home game for the Montevallo Bulldogs this week, and before you head out there to the stadium, make sure you visit Montevallo Main Street. Check out all the great businesses, all the food you can check out there on Main Street in Montevallo. Support them right there on Main Street. The organization of Montevallo Main Street, several great events throughout the year. We've got that hometown Halloween coming up on Halloween in a couple of weeks. So just make sure you go out and support them right there in downtown Montevallo, Main Street. It's a Main Street USA area. It's a place where you want to go and visit, see all the local shops, see all the great food and dining options, the coffee options, get everything you need before heading out to the football game there against Sipsey Valley for the Montevallo Bulldogs. It's going to be a great opportunity for the Bulldogs to pick up a win, but you can also support a winning community in the meantime. So make sure you visit them. Check out all the great things that Montevallo Main Street has to offer. Visit them on Facebook, on social media, and through their website to check out all the great events coming up throughout the city of Montevallo as well. It's Montevallo Main Street. They do great stuff for our local community. The Montevallo Bulldogs now 1-6 with 6 consecutive losses on the season. The offense, they've scored 16 or less in all 6 of those losses, and now they host Sipsey Valley, a team sitting at 4-4, but also coming off back-to-back losses of 51-14 and 35-14. So that offense not playing well, and then you look at what Montevallo is doing so far this season on the offensive side, scoring 12.9 points per game. So your best bet here when you look at this matchup is you hope for Montevallo the defense comes out ready to play, shuts down the Sipsey Valley offense that has struggled the last couple of weeks.
Exactly. And that's where you really look at what this team did last week in a 42-16 loss to Shelby County. You gave up your second most points of the season in 42 points, just short of that Northside game. But you also score your second most points of the game against a really stout Shelby County defense. Now, granted, that game really did get away from them, and they weren't able to really get any sort of a foothold against Shelby County. But you look at the Sipsey Valley defense, it's giving up 31.6 points per game. and that could let Montevallo get into this one just a little bit. But Sipsey Valley, they're also scoring 31.4 points per game, and coming off a couple losses to Northside and Demopolis, I think they're really going to come out here and want to get a bounce back win, especially with still something to play for in the playoffs as well. So I think that the offense will find some room to work for this Montevallo team, but can the defense keep up? We saw that last week against Shelby County. We've seen it in the Northside game as well, and against Demopolis as well. The defense can be good at times. It definitely can, but can it keep up? And that's where I think that Sipsey Valley is going to be able to win this.
I mean, you talked about it. Sipsey Valley's struggling to stop people. 31.8 points per game is what they're giving up on the defensive side. And so that's a big worry when you look at this. Montevallo has the opportunity to go out and have one of their biggest offensive nights of the season. But ultimately right now the offense struggling too much. I think that's the big difference in this football game. So I expect Sipsey Valley to walk away. The offense can score enough points. Montevallo's offense, even against that susceptible defense, may have some struggles. So ultimately, the Bulldogs are going to fall in this one, in my opinion, to a Sipsey Valley team that's won some football games and got some confidence, and I think that'll be a huge deal going into this one. It's another big opportunity for the Vincent Yellow Jackets this week as they play host to Isabella in a game where Vincent wins this one. They lock up the 2 seed there in Class 2A, Region 5, and they're coming off a 30-14 win over Aliceville on the road as the defense continued to play some good football. So now you host an Isabella team that's won 2 of the last 3, but they're 3-5 overall, Andrew.
Exactly. This Vincent team did show a little bit of signs of struggle within the first half, play a close game against a pretty solid Aliceville team, but good teams find a way to win on the road, and I think that's exactly what the Jackets were able to do. They get a big confidence-boosting win back, and now they face an Isabella team that is coming off that 52-32 win against Greene County. But those kind of show both of the problems with this Isabella team. They can score a little bit. They put up 23.4 points per game this season, but they're giving up 33.6. This was a close game last year, a 7-point loss to Isabella. I think it's a different team this year, as we've seen throughout. I think this Vincent team finds a way against that really soft Isabella defense to find a way to outpace Isabella within this one. Even if the defense gives up a little bit of points, but I do still expect this defense to have a great week once again, just because of what we've seen throughout this season. This Vincent defense, one of the top ones in Class 2A, it helps it win games like this.
Yeah, Isabella's shown flashes. They have an opportunity to turn this into a close game, but this Vincent team, the way they're playing defensively, giving up 11.3, going up against an Isabella offense that has struggled against some of the best teams they've faced so far this season, scoring 23.4 points per game overall. But I look to the other side. I think this is an opportunity for Vincent to have their biggest offensive night of the season against a defense giving up 33.6 points per game. So when I look at that, Vincent's offense has been just kind of right there all season. They've had some flashes of really brilliant play, and then they've had some average to consistent play outside of that, taking advantage of a good defense. This week, I think the offense goes out, makes a statement, plays their best football of the game of the season, in addition to the defense just continuing to do what the defense has done all season. I think that leads to a Vincent win. But if they're not careful, Isabella's the kind of team that could turn this into a close contest. So got to be ready, got to be prepared, have a good week of practice, go in focused and with the right mindset in this game. Ultimately, I think the Vincent Yellow Jackets get that done. I think they're the 2 seed coming out of this region. They've been the second best team in this region all season consistently, and I think that carries into this one. I think Vincent does it. They get the win against Isabella. That takes us to the AISA and ACSCs. We've got 3 games on tap. We've got Cornerstone at Evangel Montgomery. We've got Evangel out of Alabaster in 8-man play against East Central, and Lakeside taking on Coosa Valley. Assuming that Coosa Valley plays that game, they forfeited 2 consecutive games. So, Andrew, you look at these 3 games. What's the breakdown here? Who walks away as the winner in each of the 3?
Yeah, let's start with the Evangel game because it's one of the biggest ones of the week. It's the regular season finale for both teams. East Central coming into this one 7-0, both teams undefeated in 8-man play. This one's for the ACSC regular season title. So you win this, you get home field advantage throughout the ACSC playoffs, which I know Evangel would love to play another state championship game on their home field out there in Alabaster. So you'll want to have a really good night here as well. I think this defense is getting better in 8-man play for the Lightning, and it's matching some of the offensive production that we've seen. They've given up 12 and 14 in their last two, and they're absolutely going to need that because this East Central team lights out on offense, scoring 48.9 points per game, and that's including a season low that they posted last week, 27 points against a struggling Lighthouse team. So I think this could be a shootout. Maybe not where a quarterback throws for 817 yards like we saw Evangel out of Louisiana do last Friday night, but I think Evangel controls the ball longer with Kemp Swords and Eli Black, and I think that helps this team win in a close one, something that I don't really think that this team has had a chance to do, but they're going to need to do, especially if they want the momentum going into a potential rematch with this team later on in the playoffs. And then you go down to Cornerstone, going down to Evangel Montgomery for this one, fresh off of a 58-21 win over Lakeside. You have an undefeated battle potentially with Macon East next week. That's been the big focus going into this last stretch of region play, but you have to keep your focus on this one. This Evangel Montgomery team has set a program record 4 points this season with 58, but that was also in an 88-58 loss to Springwood. This team is really susceptible on defense. They said this team is really vulnerable, and that's where I think this Chargers team can really shine. Absolutely peaking on offense with 50.7 points per game. This team has been absolutely ridiculous on the offensive front. I'm sure we'll get to some of their offensive producers later on in SCR Stars, but the pass game is clicking, the run game is clicking, everything is clicking. That's what makes a difference in a road game at Evangel Montgomery. I like Cornerstone to get the win there. And then you look at Coosa Valley taking on the other end of that Cornerstone game last week against Lakeside, giving up 58 points. The defense gave a lot, but the offense scored a season high against that Cornerstone defense, which I think could be a problem for this porous Coosa Valley defense if this game winds up being played. Obviously, you mentioned those back-to-back forfeits. So I do think that Lakeside walks away with the win if this game winds up getting played on the field.
Yeah, it should be three solid games there. Evangel taking on East Central should be the game of the week, in my opinion. I think that's going to be a very good game, as both of these teams have been very similar, playing really good football against 8-man teams on both sides of the football. Offense is clicked, defense is playing well, and I expect that to be the case in this one. I think that's going to be a tight football game, but Evangel on their home field, a great opportunity to pick up a win there. Cornerstone hitting the road to take on Evangel Montgomery, just gave up 88 points, like you said, 88-58 loss. Well, guess what? Now you're taking on the best offense you've seen all year. Cornerstone scoring 50.7 points per game. Expect them to get north of that this week in a big game. The defense playing well, giving up just 10. I expect Cornerstone to walk away with that one. And Coosa Valley Lakeside, Lakeside's lost 3 in a row. They're 2-4 overall. But Coosa Valley, if they're the health there, if they're able to go and not forfeit this game, are they going to have enough without having played in a few weeks? You imagine it's going to be you're going to be a little bit cool and trying to get warmed back up and into midseason form. So I think that's going to be too much for the Rebels. I expect Lakeside, if that game gets played, to walk away with the victory there. That brings us to our SCR Stars of the Week, and it's going to be another long list of players that we've got to talk about, as we've got 14 total SCR Stars of the Week to go through this week. Before we talk about them, I want to tell you about another star right here in Shelby County, as we do every week. This segment always brought to you by Bertoloni's right there in Calera, one of the best Italian restaurants here in the state of Alabama. We've got this cool weather out now, and nothing is better. I've had it like 3 of the last 4 days. I've had pizza or Italian food of some kind, and Bertoloni's is where you want to go to get it. They're going to warm you up and get you ready for the colder time of the year. They were voted Shelby Living's best pizza, date night restaurant, and upscale restaurant, all in Shelby Living's best of the best this year alone. Make sure to give them a visit. See why Sonia Bertoloni and her great staff there at Bertoloni's are one of the best in the state. They've got a lot of different things that they can do for you. Obviously, a great menu. Those Italian dishes, such as spaghetti, chicken parmesan, all of the other great things that you're going to get there at Bertoloni's. The pizza, one of the best pizzas in the state of Alabama, not just in Shelby County. And of course, you can't forget about the cakes. They've got that strawberry cake that is what they're known for. One of the best cake slices you're going to find. You can get it by the slice or whole, or any of their other incredible cake flavors. But in addition to that, they've got seasonal options as well throughout the fall and winter season. So make sure you go check that out throughout this fall and winter. Or we know it's a busy time of year. We've got getting the kids to practice or extracurricular activities. Work runs late. Take advantage of their family meals. They're going to feed you throughout the week. They're going to get you everything you need for your entire family that you're going to be able to eat off of for several days. And you can order online at their new website, bertolonis.com, or give them a call, 205-664-8780, 205-664-8780. Make sure to visit them, bertolonis.com. Check out that menu. Get your mouth watering. Head down there just off of I-65 in Calera to visit one of the hidden gems and bright stars right here in Shelby County. And they proudly bring us, Andrew, our SCR Stars of the Week. So let's run through them. What you got for us with your 7 stars?
Well, I got 7 right here on my end, and it starts with a guy that we've mentioned just about every week, and it's Anthony Palmieri from Shelby County. Went for 124 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Paced this offense as it was able to outpace the Montevallo Bulldogs. So big win in a rivalry setting. You're going to get an SCR star, Anthony Palmieri. And you look towards the running backs as well. Jaden Roberts, once again, after he did it a few weeks ago, once again carried the load for this Vincent offense. Took 31 carries for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a really solid back, and he's definitely really improving with this team as the season goes along. They've got a great run game as their base of that offense, and it's really been a solid foundation for this Jackets team. And then you flip it over to the passing game. We got stars on those ends as well. You start with Calera and A.J. Johnson, one of the guys that we're mentioning week in and week out, one of the state's passing yard leaders, and he added to those numbers as well with 208 yards off 11 for 22 passing with 2 touchdowns, and then continuing to show a little bit of a dual threat flash as well with 76 rushing yards as well. And in those 208 receiving yards, 96 went to Katie Young along with a touchdown as well. So Young is going to get a star as well. He's been one of the big stars for this Calera offense and one of the biggest targets, taking advantage of A.J. Johnson as well. So 2 SCR stars for the Calera Eagles. We move on to the Oak Mountain Eagles, and they get 2 SCR stars as well, starting with Zach Fitzgerald, a massive night receiving 156 yards and a touchdown, and the man throwing it to him gets a star as well, Will Odell, 21 for 35 passing for 278 yards and that touchdown to Fitzgerald. At the end of the day, the Eagles weren't able to get it done against the Rebels, but they were able to hang in it for a long time, and a big key reasons for that were Odell and Fitzgerald. So big shout outs to them. And I want to end with Cornerstone and 8-man play. Plenty of stars that you could go into in a massive statistical performance across the board. But you look at the quarterback position, Zeke Adams, and what he was able to do. We so often talk about his rushing, and that's what led the way for this team with 5 touchdowns off of 16 carries and 210 rushing yards total in that. But his passing numbers were even better from a yard standpoint as he continues to grow as a passer. A consistent 8 for 12 passing with 234 yards and a touchdown. So a combined 6 touchdowns along with a pair of 2-point conversions, helping this offense get to 501 yards of total offense up there against Lakeside. And then over on defense, he got it done as well. 6 tackles and an interception as well to round out a really good 2-way performance for Adams, capping off a big night for other Chargers, including Noah Schober and Drake Dunning, some of those other guys who are helping this Chargers team remain undefeated.
Yeah, big night for him, big night for all those guys. Congrats to each of them. And I've got 7 that I'm going to hand out now. It was a big week for a lot of different players. I've got a couple of quarterbacks, several running backs, and a receiver to go through. But I'm going to start at the top with Trent Seaborn out at Thompson, 32 of 40, 403 yards and 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception in that game as he was throwing it all over the yard. And it's because guys really started to step up and help out. Running backs catching balls, receiver stepping up and having balance out wide was a huge help. And a few of those guys we're also going to mention. We start with Dedrick Kimbrough, another SCR Star of the Week out at Thompson. 9 receptions, 143 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that's really been what this Thompson team has been missing, that deep downfield threat. And he had some incredible catches in that game, a one-handed grab at one point for a touchdown as well. Just all over the place, he was making big-time catch after big-time catch. So a great game for him. Continues to boost the confidence of this offense, as does Mike Dujon and R.J. Evans, 2 other guys at the running back position. that are able to do a little bit more than just run the football. Dujon, 86 yards and 2 touchdowns running the football, 55 receiving yards as he's a dual threat kind of running back. And then you carry that over to R.J. Evans, 80 rushing yards, just 6 shy of what Dujon did, but also had 6 more yards receiving than Dujon did, with 61 receiving yards and a touchdown. So both of those guys over 100 all-purpose yards with 3 combined touchdowns there for the Thompson Warriors, in addition to what we saw from Kimbrough. So Trent Seaborn looks out there now, and he's got a ton of weapons that are going to help him out going into a big matchup against a very good Hoover defense. Dakari Shanks out at Spain Park, and SCR Star of the Week as well, because of his strong ability to run the football. It's bounced back and forth in a balanced attack between him and C.J. Cowley all season long. Shanks this week, 121 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Like I said earlier in the show, he was making great reads and cuts to get out into open field. He had a great game there for the Spain Park Jaguars in that 31-3 win over the Chelsea Hornets. And 2 Helena players to close down my Stars. Nate Ferguson, 16-20, 190 yards and 2 touchdowns passing. Also added 42 rushing yards with 2 additional touchdowns. So a 4-touchdown performance there from Nate Ferguson in that big win over Pelham in a rivalry game, 42-2 for the Huskies. And Jeremy Spratling, 1 yard shy of 100 yards. He added 2 more touchdowns, finishing with 99 yards on 19 carries in a balanced attack there for the Helena Huskies. So you hear all those numbers. You hear why we had 14 guys this week that we had to name. A very, very solid week and a big week of region play for all of our SCR Stars of the week. So congrats to each of you. Well-deserved, hard work gone into that. And now we've got an even bigger week this week as teams look to lock up playoff spots, 2 seeds, region championships. This is what these players are made for. I expect them to step up in these big moments and have another big-time showing in our SCR Stars of the Week next week. That brings us to the end of the Shelby County High School football show. But before we get out of here, we do it every week. We got to share our bold predictions ahead of what's going to be possibly the biggest night of the season so far, with everything that is at stake for several of our teams. So, Andrew, I jump over to you first. What's that big prediction, the bold prediction you're going to make? And not really sure how many there are this week, so it may not be as big as they've been the last few weeks. But I know there's a game out there that's caught your eye, or a performance that's going to be big time for you this week.
Yeah, it should be fairly chalky up and down the slate that we have right here. I expect a lot of these games to go just about as expected. But I do look at this Thompson Hoover game, and I really do think that with Trent Seaborn coming off of his best offensive performance of the season, he's going to take it into this one and go for over 250 yards passing in this one. With him and those receivers clicking, along with those running backs as well, I think like you mentioned, with all of his weapons that he has, he's starting to get back to that point where he had last season, with multiple receivers that could do a lot of different things for him, as well as some pass catching options out of the backfield that's really going to let this passing game step up in a big way, even though this Hoover defense is going to present a really tough test.
Yeah, you stole it right out of my mouth. I was going to go 300
okay.
for Seaborn, so that was going to be my big one there. I think he's going to continue off of that. So that's really, it's the playmakers around him. The offensive line's getting better. The players out in space, giving him more and more targets to get the ball to. So ultimately, I do think he has a big night. I think this offense as a whole has a big night. Finally has that go-to target in Kimbrough. And then if defenses start to hone in on him, there's other receivers out there that are going to make you pay, or you're going to get Evans and Dujon out in space. But since you went there on the fly, I'll go to a couple of other areas. I think that Brock Bradley out at Spain Park, as they battle for that region championship in that game, lock it up with a win. I think he goes north of 400 yards in that game. Big night for Brock Bradley throwing the football. Of course, they love to run it too. That's what limits that opportunity. But wouldn't be surprised if he has a 400-plus yard performance. And I think Nate Ferguson at Helena against that talented Chelsea defense is going to go north of 200 yards again this week. Combined running the football and throwing the football, I think he gets over 200 and a couple of touchdowns in that one for the Huskies as well. So those are bold predictions this week. I gave you a twofer in addition to my Seaborn over 300. So we'll see. The odds probably not in my favor there with those predictions, but going to be a lot of fun this week here in Shelby County. We got Thompson Hoover. We got Oak Mountain on the road at Hewitt-Trussville. Spain Park battling for a region championship. Vincent for the 2 seed. Chelsea Helena for the 2 seed. So much happening this week. Shelby County in that same boat as well. So make sure you join us later this week. Football Live pregame show. I'll be out at Chelsea, Helena. Andrew right here at Thompson. Show is we shoot to start between 5:30 and 6 o'clock. Typically going to go for about 30 minutes. So make sure you join us. We'll be live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on X throughout the night. So make sure you're following us on all of those platforms. We can't wait for it. It's going to be a big, big night for our pregame show and for high school football right here in Shelby County. That's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School Football Show. We'll see you all on Friday night.